So first question that we have from this morning is, I had an item that was made available on Thursday, and on the site it says item under review. I reached out to seller support several times to find out why, as I received no communication. One person told me chronic damage in shipment. Item launched on November. Fragile home decor item. Amazon is shipping it in a big box with no air pillows or support, of course. I asked in November if they could add paper air pillows, and of course, no, they're not going to do that. Just taking a break from the question to say no, they'll never do that. I sent a note on Thursday afternoon with documentation. My product was inspected with the U.S. warehouse before going to Amazon with no damage, but how I have changed the packaging so it could stand the 10-foot drop test. Yes, you need to do that anyway. So taking a break anyway. For everyone who's on, make sure your product can survive. Basically, pretend like Amazon's really bad baggage handlers and assume that. I also requested they look at adding ear pillows when shipping. Any tips on how I should proceed? Okay, so Amazon does this whenever there's too many situations of customer complaints. So basically, in summary, the item was under review by Amazon and they're looking at it. If you have shipped something into Amazon that requires extra dunnage, extra packaging, you're going to need to remove it and fix it. And I'm sorry that no one's talking about packaging. It's the most boring subject in the world until you have a situation happen like this, and then suddenly it's not so boring. So the problem is that you have to assume that Amazon is not adding anything, because sometimes they don't. I'm actually part of a Facebook group called Amazing Amazonians, which is a bunch of former Amazonians who get on there, and I actually joined it because not very many people from corporate joined it. It's mostly FC employees. And I actually joined it because I wanted to see what FC employees were complaining about, because my former job, like years and years ago, had a lot to do with how the FCs were working. And so I was like, all right, so let's see what they're complaining about. And it's hilarious how many of them post pictures of packages they get, and they're complaining about how crappy everyone else's FCs are. And I saw just a picture probably last week where something showed up with literally no dunnage. There were 6 products in the box, and it was just that. And there were some pretty big items too, and they were just all put into one box. And the person who was complaining was like, at Cha One, we never would have done that. So the fact is, there's lots of employees who will try to make sure that products are safe and protected before they ship out, and there's plenty who don't. So you have to assume that your product is going to go through the gamut of getting swooshed the whole time it's at Amazon until it gets to the door, because you also have to think about UPS, FedEx, and USPS, right? They're not going to be any nicer to the package, and you can't assume that Amazon's packed it with sufficient dunnage. So when your item is under review like that, most of the time you can't do anything until Amazon finishes its review. But November 1st is that's the launch date. So it was just made available on Thursday. Usually it takes them 3 to 4 days. So hopefully that review has been finished. Normally it's 3 to 4 days. If it's longer than that, then you can file a ticket and ask for an update. But typically, if they go through and they see that everything is perfectly good in the bins, they'll continue to let you sell. But then you'll continue to have the same problems. That's the only thing, is that if you haven't packaged it sufficiently to survive, you're going to have the same problem happen again. It's going to get shut down again. So if there's a lot there, then I would suggest just removing it and fixing it. If there's not a lot there, then just let it sell through and just, grit your teeth and hope for the best. If you have extra stuff, like if you've got more stuff behind, like in your storage area or wherever, what I would suggest doing is creating a new SKU. So you may have whatever the FN SKU currently is. You can create a new SKU and then ship in the new items under the new SKU. And that way you can keep the 2 groups of inventory separate. What's really unfortunate is that Amazon does not do FIFO, first in, first out. They do whatever's closest to the consumer. So if you put more stuff in, that doesn't mean the old stuff goes out first. That means the closest stuff goes out. One time I was doing an audit of a particular product for a safety issue, and there was 3-year-old inventory in the fulfillment centers because it just it was never the closest item. And it was just sitting there for 3 years. So don't assume that your oldest stuff will go out. It absolutely will not. So you can either sell through and then it's guaranteed to all have gone out, or you can ship it in through a different SKU and then sell through the old SKU or remove the old SKU. Okay. Question number 2, you mentioned that we can now do product targeting in campaigns and ads. Is this done by putting ASINs in our ads to target? It's done by choosing as a target ASINs rather than keywords. So something kind of cool about what Amazon has done in the past 8 weeks, there have been 5 new major changes to advertising, and I'm going to type these into the search here. So the first is product and category targeting. The second is portfolio organization. The third is bid strategies. The fourth is placement report. And spelling issues. And the fifth is automated targeting groups. So those are the 5 new things that have shown up in the last 8 weeks. Each week, something new, or every week or two, something new has shown up. I think that the only times that something new didn't show up was when they were in blackout for Christmas. So they've just been churning it out. So for product and category targeting, you go in and you create a manual ad, and then you select product or category targeting. You select whether you're doing category browse nodes, and then you can just add ASINs to it or add categories to it. Or you can do that both with the same ad, because it's all connected to the same manual ad. So if you have if you're in a category where you want to bid against the top competitor in your space, then you can bid that way. You can bid against the ASIN and show up in their sponsored brand carousel at the bottom. If you want to show up on the first page of the sponsored brand carousel, then you have to make sure that you're bidding a pretty high amount so that you can show up in the first page. When someone scrolls down, then your product shows on their page, right? Category targeting is when it shows up when someone goes through browse rather than through search. So if they go into, say, clothing, and they go into women's shorts or something like that, then yours would show up under women's shorts at the top rather than the top sellers. All right, so the portfolio organization is another layer of organization above campaigns. So it used to be campaigns, then ad groups, and that was really it. Now there's portfolios, campaigns, ad groups, and you can manage the budget at the portfolio and the campaign level. So that's pretty helpful because you can do it to where you're managing your P&Ls for different products. You can say, I'm only going to spend $100 a day on this product. I'm only going to spend $20 a day on this product. It used to be that you could set global limits for your account, but then that meant that sometimes the smaller items that you had would not get any ad budget at all. You'd run out before they got used. So now you can actually set it on a portfolio basis to where you can make sure that each product gets a certain amount of ad budget. If you've only got a certain amount to spend each day, then you can set the portfolio limits to where those products have a particular limit. You used to be able to set it at the campaigns, but we have multiple campaigns per product. So it's easier to group those into portfolios and then list it at the portfolio level. Then bid strategies. It used to just be that you could do bid plus or not. Now you can do fixed bids, you can do dynamic strategy bids, and then aggressive dynamic strategy bids. Then placement report is something that just showed up like this week for a lot of our clients. And that is where you can actually see exactly where your placement is. You can see what percentage is at top of page, what percentage is in the carousels, where exactly by percentage it's going, and the performance there. And then automated targeting groups are basically, instead of just having automated targeting and then you can do negative keywords and such, now it'll actually group it into 4 different targets. I don't really see target as what it's called. It's a weird name, targeting. It's really groups, automated groups. And those groups are substitutes, close match, loose match, and complement. And so if you are selling like a laptop, then a substitute would be another exact laptop with the same specs. A close match would be something where it had most of the specs, but not all of the specs. A loose match would be something like a PC, so like a physical PC, not a laptop. And then a complement would be a mouse pad or a mouse or something like that. So a lot of new things that they're adding. The portfolio, so this is the thing that's like, they're so ninja about some of these. So Vanessa asked, where do we find the bid strategies and portfolio organization? When you are looking at your ad page, like on advertising and on campaign manager, on the left-hand side, you'll see a little arrow, a little gray box that pops out like this, with a little arrow. Click on it and out pop portfolios. Like, why is it like that? Why is it so difficult to find? But anyway, that's how they set it up. Where you find the bid strategies is when you're creating a manual ad. Then you can, and when you're doing I think it might be automated ads too, but in any case, when you create your bid down after you've started making your ad groups, then you can select your bid and say what kind of strategies there are. Or if it's an existing ad, then you can go over to the ad group settings or the campaign settings. Okay, so lots of stuff on advertising. I've got a bunch of updates to make to the advertising challenge from a couple months ago, because right after the advertising challenge happened, Amazon started making all these changes. They merged AMS, AMG, and marketplace ads last year. So they are kind of bringing marketplace ads into parity with AMS and AMG, which is pretty darn cool for sellers. Okay. Next is, have you used the Amazon Brand Incubator program? What are your thoughts? What kind of additional support and benefits are provided? Is it worth it? You know, Amazon Brand Incubator program is a new program, and my understanding is that it's a kind of continuation of some of Amazon's other kind of brand programs like exclusives and Launchpad. You know, I don't know the exact details of it, so I can research it and give you my feedback in detail. My take with most of these kind of exclusive Amazon programs is two things. If you want to do anything off of Amazon for a while, it's going to be more difficult because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Amazon does give you help. Amazon does give you support, but it's focused on Amazon. And that may be totally fine for you. Maybe your goal for this year is just to grow on Amazon, just to grow on your own website, because they usually will let you do your own website and your own store plus Amazon. If that's your only goal for this year, then sure, go for it. That makes sense. If you then have, if you're then approached by some sort of other retail or some, you know, like Wayfair or something like that, you can't take it. So if you have any goals to do wholesale with anybody else or to do any sort of agreements, you certainly can't. So that's the only thing that I would say, is that sometimes folks will get locked into a contract with Amazon, and depending on the agreement, so Launchpad was a little bit more involved. Exclusives was not. You could pretty much opt out of exclusives if you wanted to. So I don't know about Brand Incubator, but that was the main concern that I had for clients is, well, what if you get this great opportunity and then you can't take it? That would be kind of problematic. As far as additional support and benefits, my understanding is that they are providing you with more support around deals, so gold box deals, lightning deals, etc. And they often will support you on developing your ads to be better, and they'll help you with various other kinds of marketing campaigns, like being added to email marketing. So a lot of it's just kind of getting in front of people, which is fine, but it's not like it's, you know, something where your hand is held by Amazon the whole way. That's, you know, a lot of times the folks that they're hiring are right out of college, and a lot of them don't know anything about how sellers function. They learn, but depending on who you get assigned, you have no idea. And they all work hard. Absolutely, they work hard. But we've worked with a few sellers who used to be in Amazon's marketplace management program, and they said that the person who managed their account was very earnest and hardworking, but not necessarily that helpful. So, you know, as with many of these programs, Amazon's trying to solve a problem for a seller or a brand, and they're trying to solve it effectively. Whether they do or not is a different issue, because a lot of times these programs are launched as part of someone's kind of personal pet project, and you know, we'll see if they're actually helpful or not. But I'm happy to look it up and give you my thoughts when I actually can read through what Brand Incubator does, since this sounds like a new thing. Okay. What's the best way to find and identify refunded shipping charges? For example, we had 2 shipments that had to be canceled during the holiday season. Open cases, we're told charges will be refunded. Not sure to see this on our transaction reports. Usually it will be under your service fees. So you can go into the date range reports and download the transactions and be able to see it. Usually it's under refunded service fees. You can also see it through your monthly summary report. You can see the total amount there, but obviously the summary report is the whole amount for the month, not the individual ones for that reimbursement. Okay. Do you have plans to add modules pertaining to making the most of product listings? I ask because I'm really clueless and can't find good info about the use of other attributes, subject matter, and target audience. Does using multiple words in each line work, for example, and does using the BTG refinement terms add more value than using my own? Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually doing a challenge in February, another free challenge, yay, on doing listings. So as part of the first part of the challenge, we'll be just writing the usual title, bullets, keywords. And then the last day of the challenge, we'll go into other fields because certain categories, I think there's over 700. I think there's 700 different fields that Amazon has in the catalog. Now, not for every category, of course. Each category has its own thing, like clothing has really specific ones. So that is a challenge that we'll be doing in February. We haven't nailed down the dates yet, but it looks like either the first or second week of February. And we will absolutely go into that and how different kinds of fields. So usually those fields do a couple different things. They are either fields that correspond to refinements on the left-hand side. So the left-hand side, when you're a customer, you can select like color maps, or you can select sizes, or you can select brands. But sometimes you can also select it using who it's for. And that's only done if you've actually put that into the subject matter or the target audience. And so sometimes you'll lose potential value by having people refine you out with the left-hand side if you don't have those filled out. Okay, so yeah, so sometime the first or second week of February for the challenge, and we'll give you more information about that. Kara asks, what is the way to get resolution to a case with seller support? I have a case open since 12/16. Even though a ticket is open with a captive, every day a new person who hasn't read the case or have any background provides a new response that does nothing to the problem. How to break through and get resolution? Honestly, the simplest way to do it when you've got a case like that just won't resolve is to get on the phone and make sure that you stay on the phone to get a captive associate. One of our team members, he's fabulous because he does most of the phone calls, and I totally understand how calling Amazon is lame because it's not fun in any possible way. But getting on the phone with a captive associate, you basically just stay on the phone with them until things are resolved. So there's been times when he's missed half of meetings before, and I've been like, that's no problem. You stay on the phone until this gets done because it's just so frustrating to get things done like that. So I totally hear you on the email response. The email responses have expected time commitments for them to finish the contact, and with the phone call they don't. So you usually need to call to get certain things done. Most of the time you can get things resolved just fine with a case, with just a ticket, but sometimes if it takes too long or if it's outside their normal SOP, you do have to get on the phone because that's when they're allowed to help you without kind of losing their performance metrics. Right. So if they're doing email, they have to finish a certain amount of email in a given amount of time. When on the phone, they don't. I mean, they do, but it's not the same kind of thing as with email because Amazon changed a long time ago to where they don't have phone requirements. Otherwise, people would start hanging up like, oops, got disconnected. So with the phone, it's almost always going to be easier for you because they'll stay on until you fix it. Now, sometimes that can take a while. And then keep asking for a captive associate. If it's something that the regular associates can't handle, just ask to go to a captive associate, and eventually they'll transfer you. If they don't, then call back. But yeah, the other thing is that it may be that your case is too broad. You may need to break it up into multiple pieces. So sometimes they don't answer because the case is too big, like I said, by email. So you need to break it into multiple pieces for them to be able to answer it. Now, I don't know the exact details of your case, whether that's the situation, but sometimes if it's just too much for them, they'll look at it, they'll realize it's too much. They'll try to answer one small part of it and then move on so that they can be done with the case. So if you do smaller bits of it where they can do that one piece of it, sometimes that helps. I don't know what the situation is in this case and whether it can be broken down into smaller pieces. Okay. So another question, in a webcast, you mentioned having images trademarked. Could this be used to stop other sellers from selling on our listings? So it wouldn't be trademarked, it would be copyrighted. And yes, it can help with having other sellers list your pictures, but not sell on your listings. So like it's a situation where, some other seller uses all your pictures and posts them up. And, this has happened to multiple clients where we found our pictures on their products. So in those cases, you can get those listings shut down for copyright infringement. If the seller's actually listing on your listing, then no, that's something you'd have to fight that a different way because technically they're not using your images. Those are your images that you put up on your listing. So if they're on your listing and it's not actually your product, then that's going to be a trademark issue if it's not really your product. So you got to do test buy and prove that they're selling something that's not yours. Like if they're doing a generic version of yours or something that's not quite the same, you do a test buy, you prove to Amazon. Sometimes the first time it doesn't work, so you got to keep harassing them and maybe escalate as well to get the other seller booted off. And then if you've got brand registry, it's really easy. You just go on to Brand Registry 2.0 and reference your test buy and say these people are and your trademark number and say these people are infringing on my trademark. But yeah, it's when people are using your images to create new listings or to promote their own product. When it's sorry, your images, when you got them copyrighted, they can't do that. Okay. All right, so that's all the questions that I had set up for this morning. And I wanted to open it to everyone who's there. If you have any other questions, pop them in right now. A couple of announcements. We do have those updates to the advertising challenge coming shortly. So it's been turned into the advertising course. And so those will be coming shortly with the 5 new updates from Amazon. As Amazon updates new pieces of that advertising tool, then you'll get another update and another description of how to use it. I have held off with some of them, updating them, because I wanted to use them first and actually give you some feedback that's useful. I've also talked to a number of folks in the industry so I can get their feedback. There's some interesting stuff with the advertising that's happening right now where some of it works, some of it doesn't. Looks like they rolled it out and they're testing it as they go. So that's kind of fun. I always enjoy being Amazon's guinea pigs. Then the content challenge in February. So we'd love to have you guys there. We'll be setting up the sign-up list soon so that you guys can make sure that you have that on your calendars and you're ready to go. This will work just like the other challenges where it's each day in the morning, and we'll all meet together and go over the content, and you have the chance to ask any questions you like, to post anything you like, to get feedback on it. So I'm looking forward to that. And as usual, we will be meeting every week on Wednesday morning. So I am super excited to get those updates to you and to work with you on that challenge next month. So thank you so much for joining me this morning, and thank you so much with my joyous update fun this morning. And please continue to post in the group. All of those are answered either by me in writing or will be answered in the weekly message, in the weekly update on Wednesdays. So all of your questions do get answered. Thank you so much for sending those, and thank you guys. Talk to you next week.